Hey, Spider Nation, welcome back to another episode of Spider-Man's Tangled WebShow. I'm Jonathan, webmaster of SpiderManFanRave.com, and joining me tonight, unfortunately a little bit ill, is James. What's going on, James?
Like John said, I'm a little bit sick tonight, so I apologize right now if I'm coughing a lot. Like right now, besides that, busy working and tired from that. Not much to say.
In terms of my week this week, well, I also had things to do, such as schoolwork. That's actually how I spent the majority of my Saturday, writing a paper for school. That is the most college student thing I've probably ever said on this show, but hey, it shows I'm committed to my education, so look at the positive side. Thumbs up. Glass half full. Um, but in terms of Spider-Man this week, there really was not any news that came out or anything like that. We did see a video of Tom Holland on the set of Avengers Infinity War where he basically just says, yeah, I saw Avengers 1 in the theater. Never thought I'd get to be in one of these movies. Yay! And it's like, yay! To be honest, we all expected that you would be in an Avengers movie the moment Spider-Man was announced to be in the MCU. So, yay! It really was not a surprise at all. It's Tom Holland standing there with Robert Downey Jr. and what's his name, Chris Pratt. Um, yeah, the guy from Parks and Recreation. Um, so that really was the only news that came out this week. It's just Tom Holland. He's going to be in Avengers Infinity War. I guess that's good news. We already kind of knew that though, so it's like it's not really news that much. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Renew Your Vows. Renew Your Vows came out this week. Renew Your Vows number 4. Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows number 4. This is the final part of this Brawl in the Family arc. This opening arc in this story in this series. So we're just going to take a quick look at this issue, and then we'll tackle a classic story arc later on in the show. But first up, Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows number 4. We got Jerry Conway, writer, Ryan Stegman, artist, Sonia Obach, and Jesus Abertov. I apologize if I'm getting that name wrong. As colorists, VC's Joe Caramagna as letterer, Allison Stock, assistant editor, Darren Shan, editor, and Axel Alonso, editor-in-chief. Spider-Man, of course, created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. I noticed Nick Lowe's not credited in this at all. Oh yeah,
Because he's pissed off at you.
yes, because I accidentally miscredited him a few weeks ago. He's like, you know what? I'm not gonna give him anything to mess up anymore. Actually, didn't he get a promotion or something? Like he got promoted to like vice president of digital content or something.
That doesn't surprise me because like every editor of Spider-Man gets a promotion.
So I don't even know if he's still working.
Axel Alonso becomes editor-in-chief. Stephen Wacker becomes the big guy of the animation department, and now Nick Loeb got a promotion into digital or whatever it is.
I don't know if he's still. I don't know if he's still editing Spider-Man or not. Um, but anyways, speaking of Spider-Man, Spider-Man, MJ, and Annie open the issue by running away from Mole-Man because Peter is not really fond of the idea of his wife and daughter being caught up in this whole mess of his. So the Mole-Men are like firing this Regent technology laser at them that is pretty much taking out everything in its path. And Peter's thinking like, shit, that's not a weapon that like I really want to get hit by, and that's not a weapon that I'd really like my family to be hit by. So let's not deal with that. So they make a run for it. They try to get away. The mole men keep following them, but of course they don't hit a dead end so much as they hit kind of a lava pit that they did not expect to encounter. And so Annie manages to get herself up to safety, but Peter and MJ, as they're trying to swing themselves to safety, they end up smashing into each other, and it's just like, that could have gone better. That's literally Peter's quote from the issue, like, after they've crashed into each other on the web line, he's like, that could have gone better. And he also accidentally webbed Mary Jane in the face, and so she's kind of pissed off at him because, that webbing probably doesn't taste good, and it obviously doesn't help when your eyes are covered by webbing. Meanwhile, outside in the surface world at the Regent Reclamation site, Betty Brant is getting information about what has happened there, and Jonah accidentally sticks his foot in his mouth when he makes a comment that Betty Brant takes as him being a sexist, and he's like, "Wait, Betty, that's not what I meant. I did not mean any sexism." All that stuff, and it's just Jonah being Jonah. And then Normie Osborn is walking around the premises, apparently it still blows my mind that Normie Osborn is the CEO of this company. It's just this is the weirdest thing in this book, and this book has giant mole men creatures and people slinging webs and all this shit, and it's just this is just so weird. But so he's like, yeah, I want to know everything there is to know about Annie. Well, he doesn't actually say Annie because he doesn't know who she is, but he wants to know everything there is to know about Annie. And then Peter and MJ are having an argument. He's like, I'm sorry, MJ. I'm not used to having people to work with. I'm used to being a solo act. And basically, while they're arguing, Annie sneaks through a hole to go fight the mole men. And Peter and MJ are like, we should probably go help her. So basically, they manage to take down the mole men because Annie manages to I don't know what. Well, she takes down the laser. I was gonna say incapacitate the laser, but I don't know if that's the right word. I might be mixing up that word for I don't know. I'm not sure if that word means what I'm thinking it does. She manages to take down the laser. She manages to deter it from its goal. I guess I could say. But so yeah, and then once Spider-Man manages to get the Mole Man's weapon away from him, he's like, "Please don't hurt me. I'm so sorry." And Peter's like, "Yeah, you're not talking your way out of this one, buddy." So a Mole Man gets arrested. MJ and Peter are talking about how Normie Osborn cannot be trusted. Blah 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 blah. And Peter and MJ accept Annie as part of the team, and they give her a code name, Spiderling. So we've got Spider-Man, Spinneret, and Spiderling. Yet again.
Remember how that was the joke in Civil War?
Yeah, it's like, that name sucks. There's a reason it was used as a joke in that movie. That name sucks. We've got Spider-Man, and James is still on mute, but he doesn't realize it.
I said, what's next? The Human Spider, aka the joke in the Sam Raimi movie?
Yes, and then when we finally meet Dr. Octopus in this universe, we'll get the scene of Jonah going through Dr. Octopus. Science Squid? Crap. Doctor Strange. That's pretty good. But it's taken. Wait, I got it. Dr. Octopus. I like it. Oh man, that's a classic Jonah scene.
And that was a great way of explaining in the real world why the villains and the heroes and everything get these stupid names. It's just Jonah wanting headlines coming up with the shit.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's like you need a catchy name like that to make a good headline.
Because if you notice, nobody actually refers to themselves as their villain name in the movie, except for I think maybe Venom.
No, Venom's name is never referred to in Spider-Man 3.
Oh, it's one of the comic book tie-ins or like novels where he says "I am Venom" or something like that.
All right.
Which pissed me off because I'm reading that and I'm like, "Fuck you! You clearly don't get who this character is, Sam Raimi."
All right, but yeah, we got Spider-Man, Spinneret, and Spiderling, and it's like, Spinneret, crappy name. Spiderling, crappy name. Yay! All right, but I'll go first with my thoughts on this issue because that is the end of the recap. I know I went through that pretty quickly, but I like this issue. I did. I thought it was a good wrap up to this first arc. We get to see a good team dynamic, or good family dynamic, I should say, because it's like these people are a family. You know, we always refer to the Fantastic Four as the first family of the Marvel Universe, but technically they're not all a family. But these guys, they are a family. You know, mother, father, daughter. Technically, these people are a real family, unless unless the Thing is like unless the Thing from the Fantastic Four is somehow related to them, which in a way that I'm not familiar with. I don't know. I'm not that informed when it comes to the Fantastic Four. But these people, real family, and a good family dynamic. I like how Peter has to adapt to being part of a team. Like he says, he's been a solo act up to this point in his career, so he's having to navigate, looking out for his wife and daughter while also still trying to accomplish his mission. So I like that. I thought that brought a good amount of tension to the book. The lava pit moment with Peter and MJ that I mentioned, with them crashing into each other, that was a funny moment. That brought a smile to my face. I loved that. I loved that entire 2-page spread. I thought that was really, really good. I mentioned it in the recap, and we spent 5 minutes on it, but Spiderling sucks as a name. It really does. It's a crappy name, but whatever. You know what? Not everyone, nobody is perfect. Not everyone can hit the park every single time, and so you know what? If that's the worst thing that Jerry Conway comes up with, in this series, we should consider that a victory, because you know what? That means we've got a good series. The artwork by Ryan Stegman and the colorists and everyone, again, really good stuff. And that's really all I have to say about it. I give it a thumbs up. It's perfectly solid. It's good stuff, and I enjoyed it. So, James, any thoughts on Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows number 4?
Like you said, it's a really good issue, really well done. I liked it. I really like the argument scene because it's very realistic. I'm sure John had his parents, and he's been in a situation where he was caught in the middle of his parents having a fight, and we have all been in there. They're arguing, he's like, see, I knew this was a bad idea. I should never let you guys wear this suit. And she's like, oh, really? Now you're being selfish. Only you can try to kill yourself while we worry about you every night? He's like, I'm not saying that, Mary J. And while they're doing Anna trying to talk to them, they're like, not now. Go to your homework or go to your room.
That's always awkward. I think we all know that. That's always just awkward.
Another thing I took from it, they're already doing the similar thing that happened in Spider-Girl, where they're teasing the fact that even though Normie's probably going to become a goblin, there may be a relationship between the daughter of Peter Parker and the son Osborn.
Oh, we already know that Normie Osborn's going to become a goblin. That just goes without saying.
No, but I mean the whole fact that they're probably going to start a relationship, even though Normie should be 1,000 years older than her.
And they name drop Spider-Girl in this issue because Annie was saying, actually, I kind of like the codename Spider-Girl better, and Peter's like, it's taken. So they kind of name dropped that character in this issue.
Well, it makes sense because that Peter was in Spider-Verse, so he met Spider-Girl.
Was that? No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he is. He's an Italian. Because it's literally a black suited Spider-Man, and the caption says, find out more about him in Renew Your Vows this summer.
Oh, I didn't read that tie-in issue, I guess. I was not aware of that. And James is looking things up, I assume.
Yeah. Thumbs up.
Anyway, so James gives the issue a thumbs up as well. So pretty positive marks from us on this issue. We're 4 issues into Renew Your Vows so far. This is the end of the first arc. And so, I think James and I both agree that this series is off to a pretty strong start. And it's good to have a Peter Parker, Mary Jane Watson marriage book again. It's nice to see these characters being represented well. It's nice to see them really interacting and getting to behave the way that they should. So, all in all, I think we're pretty positive towards Renew Your Vows as a series. So, looking forward to more of this series as it progresses. Hopefully, it continues for many months to come. I know that the sales have dropped, unfortunately. I haven't seen the January sales figures yet. I don't even think they're out yet. So I don't know how the book did in January, but I know that the December sales were not as good as November sales. But hopefully we can keep up with this book. Hopefully we can get it for many more months to come. But we'll move away from Renew Your Vows and head back about, I think, 11 or 12 years, back to the JMS run once again. I know we've been tackling a lot of JMS issues lately in the classic section, in the classic portion of our podcast, and we're going to continue that this week because we are going to tackle the kind of a turning point in JMS's run, because this you could almost consider to be like an entirely different world in JMS's run, because this is post Ezekiel, post Spider Totem. Well, actually, no, it's not. No, because I just realized that's complete. It's post Ezekiel, but it's not post Spider Totem mystic bullcrap. Because oh boy, that's another story for another day that maybe we'll do someday. I don't know. Not anytime soon, because I don't have the patience. But yes. This is Amazing Spider-Man 519 through 524, a 6-issue story arc. This is when Peter, Mary Jane, and Aunt May officially move into Avengers Tower, and it basically becomes a second New Avengers book. Like, that's what Amazing Spider-Man turns itself into. It's a New Avengers book if Spider-Man was the star of it, basically. Because the Avengers are in every issue. They are living in Avengers Tower. Aunt May starts a relationship with Jarvis. Mary Jane is accused of sleeping with Tony Stark.
And Wolverine tries to restart out the love triangle between him, Scott, and Jean, but through Peter and Mary Jane.
And of course, Aunt May is like, hey, that's Captain America. Finally, someone from my generation. But yes, this is where Spider-Man basically turns into a second New Avengers book. Like, if we're being completely honest. But that is the premise of this arc. Just a little bit of background information heading into it. Spider-Man is on the New Avengers already prior to this arc, but some additional information that is necessary is that both Aunt May's house and Peter and Mary Jane's apartment were both burned down by Charlie Wiederman, or whatever his name was, the second Molten Man, pretty much, who basically had a grudge against Peter and Spider-Man, and basically he burned down Peter's apartment, and then he burned down Aunt May's house before Peter had a chance to stop him. And so that's where we pick up with the beginning of this story. And Peter is basically like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. This is so horrible. Aunt May's lost everything. And Peter and MJ are just like, Peter's like, I don't know how to deal with this, MJ. I don't know how to deal with this. Aunt May's lost everything. I failed her. And Mary Jane's like, I love you, Peter, and you know what? I'm going to be strong for you. I'm going to help you through this. And then all of a sudden, a limo pulls up to the house, and it's Tony Stark. And basically, he's like, yeah, you're an Avenger now. You don't really got anywhere to live? Want to come live in my sweet penthouse in my sweet Avengers Tower? And Peter's like, I don't really think we can. And Tony's like, yeah, you can, because I said so. So you're going to come live in Avengers Tower. And Peter then realizes that Mary Jane realizes that Aunt May's not there, and Peter's like, "Oh shit, she went in the house, didn't she?" So Peter runs upstairs to get her, and she's trying to get this old photo album that has pictures of like Peter and MJ's wedding and Uncle Ben and all that stuff, and she's just trying to get that. They get out of the house, and then Tony takes Peter, Mary Jane, and Aunt May to Avengers Tower, and he introduces MJ and Aunt May to the Avengers. And Aunt May is especially excited to see Captain America because of how Uncle Ben used to talk about him, and also, it's like Peter says, makes sense. They're both from the same generation, right? And of course, Wolverine makes a snide comment about Mary Jane. It's like, terribly waste of a perfectly good babe. He's referencing her marriage to Peter, and it's like, basically he's just making fun of Peter. All that stuff. And Aunt May and Jarvis meet up, and she's saying, man, what's it? It must be weird being around all these superpowered people all the time, and he's not having anyone like yourself to talk to. And Jarvis is like, yeah, it kind of is. Peter and MJ find their room, and basically, what is the first thing they do when they get to their room? Well, They mark their territory.
They
Like,
fuck.
yep, I was gonna put it in a much less crude way. Thank you, James, for taking ruining that for me. But yes, they do. Thank you, James. But later across town, basically, all right. I'm just gonna sum up these next like 10 pages because I'm just gonna sum them up in one sentence. Hydra has been run by basically morons for the past 10 years who, according to the real leaders of Hydra, don't know how to be Hydra leaders. And so they're taking Hydra back, and they've made their own Avengers. Like, they've made copycats of Captain America and Thor and Iron Man and Hawkeye. And basically they're just going to take over the world, or just base, basically Hydra's back. Like, that is those 10 pages in a nutshell. It's overstretched for 10 pages of just, you basically could have said it in 2 pages. Yeah, Hydra's back. Oh shit, the Avengers have like some bad stuff to deal with in the coming issues. Um, but moving into Amazing Spider-Man number 520 here, um, assuming that it will load, I am using Marvel Unlimited. I am streaming the issues on Marvel Unlimited because I do not actually own paper copies of these issues, and so I'm at the mercy of my own Wi-Fi connection. But I do have them now. Um, I also realized that I don't think I ever gave a creative team for these issues, which I do feel kind of badly about because I usually stress the importance of that. But we have J. Michael Straczynski as the writer, Mike Diodato Jr. As the penciler. I apologize, I completely forgot to give the creative team. Um, but yeah, basically, Hydra's back, and it's gonna get bad for the Avengers. Aunt May walks in on Jarvis making breakfast, and she's like, "Jarvis, have a seat. I insist that I make breakfast for you." And so Peter and MJ are like, "Man, this is so crazy. We're living in Avengers Tower. This is so crazy." And then the other Avengers come to get them to come to breakfast because they're like, if you don't get there before Wolverine does, he's gonna eat everything and there'll be nothing left. And the moment Wolverine walks into the kitchen, Aunt May takes the cigar out of his mouth. She puts it out. She's like, "There's no smoking and no drinking in the breakfast room until afternoon at the earliest." And she's also like, before the Avengers have to head out on a mission, she also tells him, "You may want to put on a shirt. It's rather brisk outside. Besides, I understand there are some rules about proper attire, even in this part of New York." And basically, they all make the comment. They make the comment about how, like, man, she actually put Wolverine in his place. That's something that very few people can do. But yeah, they're all. The Avengers are summoned to go out on a mission because bad things are happening around the city. Tony encounters the copycat Thor that's currently terrorizing the city. Luke Cage and Spider-Woman encounter the copycat Iron Man. Captain America encounters the copycat of himself, and Spider-Man encounters the copycat Hawkeye. Three of these guys are making very bad attempts at bank robberies, while Hawkeye's copycat is at the docks. And so all of these fights, you know, they get on with it. They don't always go well, mainly because the Avengers kind of get their asses kicked. But and the Daily Bugle has exclusive photos, which they print in their paper. And Peter's like, "Robbie, wait a minute. How did the Bugle get 3 photographers on the scene of those attacks so fast?" And Robbie explains to Peter that they were tipped off. They were given a tip in advance. And so Peter starts to think about it a little bit. And Peter sort of starts to realize that, wait a minute. Those 3 bank robberies were really poorly handled by those copycats. But Hawkeye's copycat wasn't doing a bank robbery. He was at the docks. What if Hawkeye's post was the real deal? And what if Hydra was smuggling something into the country? what if the bank robberies were just a cover to divert the other Avengers away while Hawkeye was able to smuggle something in? The Hawkeye's copycat, I should say. And so Peter figures that out, and he tells the other Avengers, he explains it to them, and the issue ends with us seeing exactly what Hydra smuggled into the country. So that's the recap of Amazing Spider-Man 519 and 520. I realized that, like a moron, I apparently am just not thinking well tonight. That I did not establish that we are going to be handling this arc in 3 distinct parts, 2 issues each. And so that is the first 2 issues of this arc. And so, James, we'll let you go first this time. What did you think of Amazing Spider-Man 519, 520?
Oh, it's a really good issue. Both of them, I really enjoyed reading them. I like the interaction between Peter and his family and the Avengers, because it is very kind of like stuff that he never thought was going to happen, and they are out of their element kind of thing. And I like that. You get to see Peter's, personality reacting when his Avenger team up, but he also gets to see how, Mary Jane relates to these people and Aunt May, so that's really nice and cool. Yeah, it's pretty weird that the first thing Peter and MJ do is, hey, it's a nice house. Do you want to bang on Tony Stark's bed? Oh, yeah.
I gotta say, it's an eccentric choice. I will say that. It's not necessarily the first thing you might think of.
Oh, why fail babe, right?
I didn't really understand what you just said.
Don't waste a babe, right?
Well, I mean, you know what? If you're, when a husband and wife love each other. Oh man, now I'm coughing. James,
weakest part is Hydra.
Yeah.
I give both of them a thumbs up.
Okay, but building off of what James was saying there right towards the end of his review, yeah, Hydra is definitely the weakest part of this story, especially the intro in 519. It's like it takes 10 pages to say something you could have said in like 2 or 3. Hydra's back, and they mean business. Like that was all those pages meant. You didn't need all the other stuff. That it was a waste of time. But that's actually the only negative thing that I have to say about these 2 issues, because I agree with a lot of what James said. Good intro, intro scene for May, MJ, and the Avengers. Because, I liked seeing Mary Jane and Aunt May's reactions to being in this part of Peter's world, because Mary Jane even says it, I think it's in 519 or 520, one of those issues, that, she's never really been inside Peter's world before. It's like she's seen it, she's heard about it, but she's never really experienced it in this way before. She's never really experienced his Spider-Man world in this particular way. And so it's kind of exciting for her, and it's also, it's got her out of her element a bit. And I really like the way she reacts to it, and I like a lot of that. I love the scene with Aunt May just putting Wolverine in his place. I'm like, yep, that's good. I like that. I like that a lot. That was funny. I like that. I like the action scenes between the Avengers and their copycats. I thought that they were pretty good. But the main thing that I loved about this is that I felt like these issues could have been an easy trap to fall into for JMS, for Peter to become sort of downplayed in the presence of the Avengers, but he's not at all. In fact, he is the one who figures out Hydra's plan. He's the one who figures out what they're really up to. He is the one who notices that, he's the one who notices the photos in the Bugle, that they're of all 3 bank robberies, and the Bugle just happened to be the ones to get these. He notices all of this stuff, and it's really good. It's really, it's solid character work. And, it would have been very easy for JMS to sort of downplay Peter in the presence of the Avengers, as, we've talked about Dan Slott's current run and how Peter Parker, is sort of depowered whenever, he teams up with another hero. But I mean, that's not just a Dan Slott fault. I mean, plenty of other writers have done that as well. But I like that JMS was able to avoid that trap here. I like that he was able to sort of divert that away. So I give that a thumbs up, definitely. I do give these two issues a thumbs up. I think that there's a lot of good stuff in here. The weakest part is Hydra. I do agree with James on that front. It's like this isn't a particularly interesting Hydra plot. It's like, oh hey, they smuggled something into the country. That's not that impressive. It's like Hydra's back and they mean business. Okay, show me. Show don't tell. And it's like the most you show me so far is copycat Avengers, and it's like, not that impressive. But you know what? I mean, we still got 4 issues to go, but of course, I give these first 2 issues a thumbs up. A lot of really good stuff. Hydra's a weak link, but the good outweighs the bad in terms of these 2 issues, definitely. I apologize. I had to take a drink of water. Water is essential to living, so I recommend that everyone else drink water plentifully as well, because water is kind of essential in that way. But we move on to Amazing Spider-Man 521 and 522. Basically, the issue begins with Peter Parker explaining his theory once again to Steve Rogers, and Steve is like, I'm not exactly sure if you're right, but if you are right, if you are right, I will definitely believe you, and I definitely believe that there's a chance that you are right. So Peter, the truth is the truth, Peter. Go find it. And Peter's like, man, he's basically thinking to himself, Captain America is so amazing, all that stuff. And so Peter does some investigative digging. He's trying to find the answers to this stuff. But meanwhile, Mary Jane's play is opening off Broadway and stuff. And so Peter makes it a priority to go over there and see her on her opening night. And so, of course, we get to see Mary Jane. We get to see like this splash page of Peter watching MJ in the play and thinking about how much he loves her and all that stuff. And they go to an after party later where MJ is basically, I don't know. I don't think photobombed is the right word, but like basically she's ambushed by this douchey photographer who's, he works for the tabloids and all that stuff. So, but Peter's spider sense goes off when he sees some guys at the party, so he decides to follow them as Spider-Man. And it turns out to be this guy named Lascombe, I think his name is, this like really high-level billionaire. And Spider-Man, he follows the guy, and he sees a Hydra agent with a gun outside the guy's home. And so Spider-Man takes him down. Well, actually, no, Spider-Man doesn't take him down. The guy gets run over by a car. Like, literally, it's just some old woman accidentally runs him over with a car. And Lascombe comes out, he's like, ma'am, it wasn't your fault, all this stuff. And Spider-Man, thank you for the protection. But Spider-Man's like, why is my spider sense still going off around that guy if the Hydra agent, is down for the count? And then we cut back to Mary Jane. She's going back into the Avengers Tower. She's getting home from her debut, and that same trashy photographer from earlier catches a pic of her because he was apparently following her, and so he snaps a shot of her going into Avengers Tower, and he's like, "Well, what are you doing here, Miss Watson?" And she says, "I'm here to see Tony Stark. What else could there be?" Because she's like, I can't tell him, the reason I'm really here. And so that ends up being the headline in the newspapers the next morning. MJ is having an affair with Tony Stark. And also we learn that Hydra is planning to dump this missile full of toxic chemicals and poisons into an aquifer in the middle of the country and basically render 8 states uninhabitable. And it's basic Hydra planning. It's like it's what Hydra's done it's like it's just more mediocre Hydra plot. But that is Amazing Spider-Man number 521, And as we move into Amazing Spider-Man number 522, Peter's woken up by a phone call from Robbie, and basically Robbie's like, "Oh man, I just saw, I saw the headline in the paper. I'm so sorry, Peter, about everything that's happening." And Peter, Peter hasn't seen the headline yet. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know about this, that this has happened to Mary Jane. So he's, obviously furious that this has happened, and Wolverine's making snide remarks, and Peter apparently throws him out a freaking window, which is like, okay. But Peter goes to Mary Jane, who's obviously, very upset, very angry about this, and, they reassure each other that everything's okay, and Tony comes in. Tony's like, everything's fine. I'm not mad at you, Mary Jane. I promise. I'm everything's fine. I'll take care of it. And we also, Jarvis is comforting Aunt May, all this stuff. Everything's, just everyone's trying to process the situation. Everyone's trying to deal with it. Peter follows up on his spider sense feeling from the previous night with Lascombe, and he tries to puts a spider tracer on Lascombe, so that he can keep track of him. But Peter realizes, he realizes that Lascombe is, it's kind of acting a little bit strangely, because he watches Lascombe go into just a sort of a bedroom area, and Peter's thinking, wait a minute, Lascombe isn't in the elevator, but my spider sense, which is keyed into my spider tracer, tells me that he's going down. Why is that? So Peter goes into, Peter breaks into the apartment. He goes into Lascombe's room. He finds Hydra outfits, and he's like, crap. And so Peter does a little bit more digging. He finds basically a secret Hydra base. So he takes his mask off. He puts on a Hydra uniform so that he can sneak down there. He discovers their plan. He discovers what's going to happen and everything like that. He finds a Hydra agent who's basically betraying them because they're not allowing him to get his family clear of the impact area of their missile in time. And so he's willing to betray Hydra and help Spider-Man and all that stuff. And so he tries to lead Spider-Man to an exit, but that exit leads them to the Copycat Avengers, and that's the cliffhanger of Amazing Spider-Man 522. So I'll let James go first again with his thoughts. What do you think of Amazing Spider-Man 521, 522?
They're really good. I like the scene of Mary Jane at the play. It's kind of a play on, again, what was going on in the movies, but still was handled really well. And you got Peter's monologue about how much he loves Mary Jane, which is a trademark in the JMS era. And the after party is a really nice touch. I love the whole Mary Jane and the tabloid guy and her have to come up with an excuse. And, of course, the Parker Luck, he says it's because she's begging Tony, which does make sense. A world-famous supermodel turned actress just so happens in the middle of the night keeps on sneaking into Stark Tower. What else is going on, And it's Tony Stark, of all people, the biggest man whore of the Marvel Universe. So I liked how that's handled. I like the scene of Peter going into the bedroom, and he's all like, Mary Jane, are you up? Nah, you're probably still asleep. I love you. Just know I love you, Night. And you see her angle, and she's like wide awake, because she realizes, oh shit, he's probably going to say I'm fucking Tony. Which, I don't know why she wouldn't just be straight up with Peter, why she has to sneak around and do that. Because Peter met that guy, and all she would have to say was, Peter, oh yeah, by the way, he followed me to the tower. Don't worry about your secret identity. I said I was here to see Tony. But if he's a sleazeball who says that I'm sleeping with Tony, you have a heads up, kind of. Instead, it felt kind of like drama for drama's sake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like unnecessary tension, I guess you could say.
Because Peter literally met this guy. So all she had to say was, if he says anything, just to know it's because he met me and I came up with a bullshit answer.
All right,
It was just cliffhanger for cliffhanger's sake. Another thing is, I don't care about this Hydra guy. because it's the classic MMO of Hydra. You introduce a new businessman character, a rich guy, and he turns out to be the new Hydra leader. This is literally rinse and repeat every Hydra storyline ever.
Yeah, it's like that's why I mentioned it's a mediocre Hydra plot. It's like, yeah, like this is just what happens. It's like you're not doing anything new or inventive or original with it. But any other thoughts, James? Need you give these issues thumbs up, sideways, down?
Not really, but I do give it both thumbs up.
All right. I will agree with James on the thumbs up. I did enjoy these two issues as well. I'll echo James's sentiment about the Peter MJ moments with Peter's also a narration / internal monologue thing about him saying how much he loves Mary Jane. I did like that moment. I love that he took time out of his schedule, time out of his whole, Avengers investigative thing to make sure that he went to go see her opening night thing. I really enjoyed that. And, JMS is probably the best marriage writer for Peter and MJ that ever worked on Amazing Spider-Man or Spider-Man in general for the marriage era. Like, at least in terms of their relationship. And it really shows in these issues, just how well he writes them together. Like I said with the last two issues, I love Peter being the front of this investigation. Peter's the one who figures all of this stuff out. Peter's the smart one. He's really the brains of the operation, and I really like that. I will say that I do kind of like the MJ banging Tony Stark, newspaper, tabloid, trash subplot. Like James said, there's no reason for her to like sneak around, and keep it, try to like be, I don't know, kind of distant from Peter about it, because like James said, Peter knew who this guy was. So there's really no real reason for her to act like that. But the plot itself, I don't think is terribly mishandled. My criticisms of these two issues, again, Hydra is mediocre, not impressive at all, and it's just it's every Hydra storyline ever. Like James has said, it's like I just said, there's nothing exciting here. I've seen this before. I've read this before. You're not really intriguing me in any way. I will say 522, the scene with Peter breaking into Lascombe's apartment and everything. I think the humor is a bit overdone in that. I think there are some jokes that just I don't know, kind of grate on my nerves a little bit. The humor started to get a little bit old. But other than that, there really wasn't anything else. That will be a point that we bring up again in the next two issues, because the next two issues, well, we'll get to that when we get there. But I do give these two issues a thumbs up. An interesting point that I'll bring up about this story arc is that this is the first time for this podcast that I've reread this story arc since I read it for the first time several years ago when I was reading through JMS's run. And the only thing I remembered about this story arc before I reread it today was that I hated it. I remember the first time I read it, I absolutely hated it. I thought it was boring. I thought it was terrible. But I've actually kind of enjoyed it as I've reread it. So, it's nice to sort of revisit something and form a different opinion on it. But moving on to Amazing Spider-Man 523, 524. Forgive me, I just need pure Aqua Spring water. I know they will never sponsor us, as James always reminds me, but if they ever want to sponsor us, the option is always open. Pure Aqua Spring water. Actually, this is just a recycled bottle that I drank. I actually drank pure Aqua Spring water a long time ago, and I just keep refilling the bottle with water from my own sink. But still. So Amazing Spider-Man 523, 524. Basically, the issue opens with Spider-Man's like, okay, I need to formulate a plan here because I got 4 copycat Avengers in front of me. And basically, Peter realizes, their strengths and weaknesses, and he uses that against them. And he actually manages to fare pretty well against these copycat Avengers. He actually manages to stall for time pretty well until the actual Avengers show up. And Captain America has one of the best lines of the entire arc. Good day, gentlemen. You have exactly 3 seconds to surrender. Unfortunately, it took 5 seconds for me to say that, which I thought that was a quality line. I thought that was really cool. And so, of course, we get Avengers Assemble, and the Avengers take down the copycats pretty easily. Spider-Man attempts to override the missile launch, and that doesn't really go as well as he planned, because it turns out that another Hydra agent has managed to override the missile himself, but not in the way Peter intended to. Peter intended to shut it down, but instead, this other Hydra agent has managed to speed up the launch, and Peter's like, "Oh man, that's not good." So Spider-Man webs onto the missile. He webs himself onto it. He crawls up the missile. He's trying to tear out the guidance system, direct it towards the ocean, so that it won't affect the water supply of any civilians or anything like that. Peter manages to successfully redirect it to the ocean. The missile explodes, but Peter's kind of disoriented, knocked out from being on top of this flying missile that was going way up into the atmosphere. It was cold. It was hard to breathe, and of course, he was just the victim of a strong concussive blast from that missile. Ah, crap. I think I just. Oh wait, never mind. Sorry, I was having problems with my Marvel Unlimited. But yes, that is how issue 523 ends. And as we move into issue 524, we see Peter falling from the sky. The missile has just exploded. But, of course, because the Avengers are a prominent factor in this story, Iron Man comes to save Peter just in time before Peter hits the water and is seriously injured. So, of course, all is well that ends well in that department. Spider-Man survives, to live another day, and he will, of course, remain an active member of the New Avengers. I apologize, I'm having trouble with my Marvel Unlimited. It is not loading. Oh, there we go. So yes, Peter is saved by Tony. Tony takes him back to Avengers Tower to, of course, receive medical attention, because Peter just, fell from the sky, suffered a massive concussive blast, and of course, all that stuff. Peter wakes up several days after the incident, and Tony explains to him, how everything turned out, all that stuff. Peter walks into Tony's hall of armor, I guess you could say, and he's just absolutely amazed by everything he sees. And this is where the story sort of starts to move away from the arc that we've been dealing with for the past, several issues that we've been talking about tonight, and this sort of starts to set up the next story, which is the other, because Tony explains that, Tony explains that there was an anomaly in Peter's blood, and Peter's like, "Tony, my blood is an anomaly. I was bitten by a radioactive spider. I have radiation all over my blood." And Tony's like, "Yeah, I know, but just in case, have you been experiencing any blackouts, losing consciousness from what would not normally be undue physical stress or extreme emotional stress? Have you suddenly found yourself dizzy or disoriented, clumsy or confused?" And Peter's like, Peter's remembering that these things have happened. He knows what Tony's talking about, but he says, "No, I mean, I've always been kind of loopy, and no, I'm good. I'm good." And so Peter goes to see Mary Jane. Mary Jane's so relieved to see him, see that he's okay. Peter notices Aunt May and Jarvis holding hands, and he's like, "What's going on there? What's happening? What is going on there?" And, he's just sort of, he doesn't really know how to handle the situation. Tony goes to see that sleazy tabloid trash reporter at his office, and Tony's like, "Yeah, so you're gonna basically, you will retract your piece and apologize for the pain you've caused, or I will use every resource at my disposal, every dollar I have, to grind you into powder. Am I perfectly crystal clear?" "Yes, sir, Mr. Stark." And so Peter and MJ, just have this, really tender moment in their bed, not sexual, as James alluded to before, but, just a nice discussion, nice romantic discussion. And Peter decides to go soak in the hot tub or whatever. But guess what happens to him? He blacks out. And MJ, like an hour later, says, "Peter, are you okay? You've been in there for an hour." And Peter's like, "No, I'm fine, I'm fine." And Peter's thinking to himself, "I'm fine, I'm fine. I've been through a lot in the past few days. I'm totally fine. There's totally nothing wrong. Totally nothing wrong. Just don't think about it." Dun dun dun. And that's how the issue ends. And of course, that leads into the other storyline. I'm not saying, the other storyline. I'm saying the other, which is the title of the storyline. But oh boy, that's a storyline for another day. We do not nearly. I don't have the time or patience to deal with that tonight. Oh boy, maybe someday we'll tackle that. But James, we'll start with you for the final time. Amazing Spider-Man 523, 524. What'd you think of the final two issues, and what'd you think of this arc in general?
I like it. Again, it's just a fake fight scene in the one issue, you know. It's that kind of negative. I hate when it's just one way or the other. It's either extreme, just one scene of them all talking issue, or one big fight scene. And I would like it to be a little bit more, a little bit of a balance, The one part I did like, though, is what after Cap says, "Avengers Assemble," that's when it hits Peter. Holy shit, I'm an Avenger. Cap just said Avengers Assemble, and that means me. I really like that moment with the whole, I'm not just making history by joining them, I'm a part of their history now, I love that line. The final issue was basically, like you said, it could be kind of like considered part 0 or prologue to the other. It sets up the whole Peter dying from the unknown disease, which, like I said, has been going on for at least 6 months between this Marvel Knights and Think Spectacular was the other satellite title still at this time. How you would have issues where Peter would black out and stuff like that, but he would always have kind of excuse why. It'd be like, well, Wolverine did just stab me in a sparring match, so that's why it happened, or oh, I'm just tired, I'm exhausted, or whatever. He's coming up with excuses in his head why he's having all these things, and now it's kind of like, now that Tony mentioned, no, these are actually symptoms of something bad. Now he's starting to connect the dots for them, and I like that. Yeah, it's just all in all a really good issue, and I like the characters in it. 2 thumbs up for both.
I'll I'll agree with James. I like these 2 issues as well. I thought the action in 523 was pretty good. I like Spider-Man strategizing, figuring out how to take down the Avengers copycats, using their weaknesses and their sort of lack of communication against them. I thought that was really good. And I also, this is more sort of a observation of the whole arc in general. Spider-Man is a worthy Avenger. And of course, we all knew that, but he's really shown as that in this arc. It's like, Spider-Man is worthy of being on the Avengers. He is an absolutely fantastic hero. He knows what he's doing. He knows, he basically figured this whole Hydra thing out by himself. Now, granted, the plot sucked, so it's like it wasn't that hard to figure out, but still, he was the one who figured it all out. And it's like, Peter is the hero of this story. He is, you've got Captain America and Iron Man and all these other characters over here who are really good heroes. But Peter Parker is the one who takes the spotlight. Peter Parker is the hero of the day, and I really, really like that. Now for the setup for the other. Oh boy! Like James said, it could be considered part 0 of the other. It's just like, yeah, this sure did set up the next story arc. And this is not a review of the other, so I'm not going to go into how much that story sucks. But yeah, basically, I will say that moving away from the other setup, I will say that I liked Tony Stark confronting the tabloid reporter. I liked that scene a lot. I liked him standing up for Peter and Mary Jane and their privacy and all that. But of course, Tony was involved in that too, so you could technically say that Tony was being selfish about it. But whatever.
I like that part too.
But also, something I haven't mentioned is good artwork by Mike Deodato Jr. We haven't really talked about his work a lot on this show because I think the only other story that we've talked about where he was the penciler was Sins Past, and that was almost 2 years ago now. But But yeah, I really like his artwork. It's really strong, really good stuff. I think it really fits this arc. I think it fits the tone of the story, and I think it complements the plot nicely. Um, Other than that, I give the issue a thumbs. I give these two issues a thumbs up. I think it's a perfectly solid story arc. I mean, again, Hydra is the weak link. The Hydra plot is, you know, it's I don't know. It's not special. It's unoriginal. It's we've seen it before. It's not really that exciting. But Spider-Man, his interactions with the Avengers, you know, Peter, MJ, and Aunt May moving into Avengers Tower, seeing Peter fight as part of this team and being a really worthy member of it, and of course Peter just showing his skills as a superhero and as an investigative journalist and all that stuff. And so I think there's a lot of really good character stuff in this that sort of overshadow the weakness of the Hydra plot. So overall, thumbs up from me on this arc. It's not the most impressive thing I've ever read, but I mean it's a passable story. It's a readable one. Um, but other than that, that's going to conclude our review portion of this episode, and that's also going to conclude this episode of the podcast. We don't really have anything else to discuss this week. So, James, any final shout-outs or words for the listeners before we sign off?
Uh, Not really. Just hope I get over this cold, and shout out to people watching the show. Thanks for watching.
My shout-outs this week, Marvel Stanley, Steve Ditko, JMS, Mike Diodato Jr., Jerry Conway, Ryan Stegman. Thank you for Spider-Man. Thank you for the comics we reviewed this week. Other shout-outs. Let's see. Shout out to Marvel Diamond Select action figures. I picked up 2 of them this week. I picked up the Daredevil figure, and I picked up the Winter Soldier figure from that was based on the Civil War, Captain America Civil War movie, Winter Soldier. So I give a shout out to them. Those are good figures. The Daredevil figure has very little articulation though, so that's really kind of a disappointment because that's a figure you'd want to have a lot of articulation. So that's a bit of a disappointment, but I don't know. They look good, on my desk and stuff. So thumbs up to them. Other shout-outs, I saw the first episode of Power Rangers Ninja Steel, which I discussed with James before the show. It's okay. If you're a Power Rangers fan, you're not going to be impressed. And if you're not a Power Rangers fan, it's not going to do anything to sway you to watch more Power Rangers, I don't think. It's okay. The problem is that they spent the entire episode focusing on the least interesting character on the show. So, yeah. I've only seen 1 episode so far. I plan to see more, so hopefully I will. My opinion of the season will improve as I see more episodes. Other shoutouts: the Jessica Jones comic by Brian Michael Bendis, that's currently being published. I'm really enjoying that. I think that's really strong. Even though it really makes no continuity sense whatsoever with what Jessica Jones has been doing, like even in other books that Bendis is writing, like he just completely ignores continuity even from his own books, which is just like the funniest thing ever about Bendis. But whatever, it's a really good comic. I've enjoyed it. Trying to think of anything else to talk about, but I'm drawing a blank. So yeah. Thank you all for tuning in. Next week is the finale of Clone Conspiracy, so we will be coming back and discussing that. We'll be discussing that probably at length because I'm sure there will be plenty to talk about with that issue. We may hit up another classic storyline, I don't know, just depends. So we have the Clone Conspiracy finale next week, and then the following week we have Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 24, which will be the Clone Conspiracy epilogue. So we'll be discussing that also at length, and we'll probably, sometime in the next 2 weeks, we'll do like a Clone Conspiracy retrospective, discussing the entire arc as a whole and what we thought of this massive Spider-Man event that will be talked about for years to come. We'll be discussing that at length either next week or the week after. Most likely, we'll be discussing it 2 weeks from now. So yeah, that's our show for this week. So thank you to everyone who tuned in, and we'll see you next week with the Clone Conspiracy finale.